Hi, it's Nick Astor with TriplePundit.com. I'm here at the Wall Street Journal's Economics Conference down in Santa Barbara, California. I'm here with Suzanne Shelton. She is the president and CEO of the Shelton Group, an organization we've followed for a long time.
Thank you.
It's very nice to meet you in person finally.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
My pleasure. So Suzanne, you led a roundtable discussion today,
Yep.
and we were talking about how great it is that companies are starting to understand sustainability. They're starting to have some goals, and it's right here in Santa Barbara. I mean, major companies are here making goals, talking about this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you don't engage the consumer, if you don't get down to the wider audience, these things can only go so far.
That's right.
Is that really the case? What's the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way to think about it is most Americans aren't coming to these conferences, right? So they're not thinking about sustainability on a regular basis. They're not thinking about environmental issues. They're just not thinking about all the same stuff we're thinking about. So they're not dying to rush out and be greener, as much as we've kind of hammered that message at them. Be green, be green, be green. They're still not dying to rush out and do it. What we see in our data, Nick, is about 66% of the population is searching for greener products, but actual purchases don't come anywhere close to that. As you drill into the data, what is interesting is that the lower cost the category and the more sustainable options that are available in the category, it kind of doesn't matter whether or not they're searching for options in that category. They will actually sometimes buy greener products even if they're not searching for them. The paper products category is a good one. When you look at people who say they've purchased a green product in that category versus people who say they're searching for, the number searching for greener paper products is actually smaller than the number who says they've purchased them. So what that tells us is, okay, if you have a low-risk category where the sustainable option is at a comparable price point and there are multiple sustainable options, somebody will try something, In the higher price categories, though, it's exactly the opposite. Take energy, for instance. 40% of Americans say they're searching for greener options as it relates to energy, and also roughly 40% say sustainability is really important as it relates to energy, but like less than 2 or 3% of people have actually done anything about it because it's a higher price point category. But actually, we think that's where a sustainability story really has a nice advantage. I mean, that may seem obvious, right? Because if you're talking about, let's say, renewable energy, well, by its very nature, it's sustainable. So it may seem obvious that you don't really have to do a lot of storytelling around that. But we would say, yeah, you do. That you want to talk about kind of the broader benefits there, and that becomes a nice reason to believe. So I can buy energy from, let's say I'm in Texas, it's a deregulated market. I can buy energy from any number of providers, but provider A tells me the story about how they're environmentally friendly, the renewable energy options that are part of their mix of energy generation, and provider B doesn't tell me that. They're about the same price. Well, then I'm more likely to go with provider A because I think sustainability is important as it relates to energy. So I'm more likely to go there. So that's kind of the broad context for the discussion, but a couple other points worth talking about are these. As we look to engage Americans in sustainability, we must understand that education alone will not get us there. One of the things I like to say when I speak to audiences is I like to say, give me a show of hands of how many of you can think of one thing you should do on a daily basis to be healthier, and you don't do it. And almost every hand in the room goes up, right? So knowing something and doing something are two different things. I can know that I should do 20 minutes of cardio every day. Doesn't mean I actually do it. So we can't educate our way into consumer engagement. We have to really think about the principles of behavioral economics as much, if not more so, the P's of marketing, if you will. So we have to understand, decisions cause friction. We don't like to make them. We have to understand that we look for social cues. We do look to see what other people are doing. We have to understand that we are emotional creatures. We don't just do the cost-benefit analysis and make the economically wise choice. There's a whole host of emotions that go into that. And we have to understand that perceptions of value are skewed by a whole host of different life experiences and other factors at play in the market. So we have to look at engaging consumers through that lens. And a couple of the key principles we use, loss aversion. So the idea that losing something you already have is more painful than gaining something I might get is joyous. So, for instance, losing money I already have is a more emotionally visceral thing than the idea that I might save a little bit of money on something I might buy. So we've, in a lot of our work around energy efficiency, we rarely talk about saving money anymore. We talk about not wasting money and not wasting energy, because it's just got a more powerful emotional pull, and that will cause people to take action more so than the idea of some fictitious savings somewhere that might happen. Another thing is this idea of waking people up to automatic behavior so they can make a conscious choice. Energy consumption, water consumption, the way we handle waste is largely automatic. I just throw stuff in the trash, I leave the water on when I brush my teeth, turn the lights on when I enter a room, and I don't think about it. They're all automatic behaviors. So if we want to change how people are doing that, we want them to conserve energy, we want them to conserve water, we want them to recycle more or compost. We literally have to help them become aware of those automatic behaviors and find a way to make those behaviors uncomfortable so that they will then choose differently. Like once upon a time, Americans felt perfectly comfortable tossing litter out a car window, right? And today, most of us don't feel comfortable doing that. So that was a behavior change, and it was a cultural change on our part. Once upon a time, I felt perfectly comfortable tossing a soda can in the trash can. And now I don't feel comfortable at all doing that. In fact, I feel a little sick to my stomach on the airplane yesterday. The guy with the bag is walking down the aisle collecting trash, and you know what? I'll do this next time. I almost thought, I'm going to carry this Coke can off the plane with me, and I'm going to find a place to recycle it.
They just claim they recycle them.
Yeah, I don't believe it, because it's all just being tossed in the trash bag, So, but I had a sick to my stomach feeling like, this is not where that goes. This is not how this is supposed to be done, and I shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. It used to be an automatic behavior. Now it's uncomfortable, so I'm choosing differently. And so soon I will begin to take that off the plane with me instead of throwing it in the trash.
Here's an interesting question. There's sort of two sides of this here. You talked about sort of somewhere around 60% of people, they get it, but they're not necessarily taking big actions. They're not necessarily making big strides. They got other things to worry about. That's sort of their perspective on things.
Yep.
And then I've heard that by that same argument, maybe 20% are the really engaged, and the other 20% are sort of the outliers.
That's
who
right.
Kind of really don't care or hostile or whatever.
Yep.
I love that ratio. I think it's probably pretty good, so I use it. Now, how much does it really matter that we engage that 60% beyond? What I'm saying is, if we could really engage the people who are really into it, is there sort of a trickle down? And obviously, I think that works to a certain extent, but then you get that simple behavior like throwing trash out of the window, which is obviously something that even people in the sort of lower 20% probably wouldn't do, because that's become a thing you just don't do through education and Woodsy Owl on TV and all that sort of thing.
That's right.
So where's that line of what are the things that really do need to be sort of totally culturally adopted versus this kind of stuff we're okay kind of concentrating on the leaders, and they're the ones who are going to drive it.
It's not an easy answer. So on the one hand, Malcolm Gladwell might say, well, if we get to the 20%, that's the tipping point, and everybody else will tip over. My worry about making it that simple is this. When I talked earlier about social cues, we look to people like us to see how are they behaving. All right, so if the 20% is someone that I don't identify with, they don't look like me, they look like, and this isn't actually who the 20% is, but let's say they all look like big tree hugger hippie people who are way out on the fringe extreme environmental. That's not who they are, again, but let's say that's what they look like. Well, then if I'm an average mainstream consumer, I may go, oh yeah, that Prius driving solar panel thing, that's all for hippies, that's not really for me. So I think, yes, if we can get enough people doing some stuff, we will reach a tipping point, and I think it's important that we get a variety of different walks of life in there so that in different social circles, we begin to see people who look like us, and they're giving us social cues that, well, the thing you should do is drive a hybrid. Well, the thing you should do is put solar panels on your house. So it's all about the tribe. That whole social pressure bandwagon effect thing, it only works with a tribe you care about. For me, if well, no, I won't go to the political example, but if people on the other end of the political aisle for me adopt a certain behavior, I might actually be less likely to adopt that behavior. Like, I don't want to be like that guy. Yeah. I don't agree with him. I don't believe what he believes, so I don't want to be like him.
Now, this tribe question, my last question, I guess, gets even a little bit more difficult, and that's where we we talk about tribes and so on, and we talk about, and a company would talk about it as market segmentation or something, and there's people that make a lot of money off people that drive gigantic cars and burn a lot of gas and so on, and what are you telling these companies? How do we get? Is it even possible to have a company whose vested profit motive is in even encouraging that behavior? Start to evolve how they do business. Is it even possible?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Going down the automotive path, it seems that a lot of the automakers are continuing to make those gas guzzling vehicles to the degree that they can, since there's now some policy in place that tells them they have to improve the miles per gallon, the CAFE standard. It seems to me that more and more of those automakers are also making available higher miles per gallon options. So if I'm Ford, I might be selling a lot of SUVs, but I'm also now beginning.
People do care. I mean, you can buy the giant truck, and it says you get the EcoBoost or whatever. Right. It's not huge, but it's something, and that seems to be understood, I think.
Yep. I'll tell you. So this is where my politics will show. I do think a little bit of regulation is a good thing, and I know there are many people here who would disagree with me, but I think. By the federal government saying to the automakers, look, here is the timetable at which you must hit these miles per gallon standards. I think it will force innovation that wasn't happening. It was easy for the automakers to just keep making trucks that get 12 miles per gallon because people would buy them. And if Ford Motor Company is forced to now make a truck that gets 25, 30 miles per gallon, they will figure that out. I mean, I'm a huge believer in innovation and entrepreneurship and all that, so they will figure that out, and the market will buy it because that's what's on the market. So there's a way in which another behavioral economics principle: if we take the bad options away, people will choose the good options. It's like with children: if you don't ever make candy available, then maybe they'll eat more fruits and vegetables because you never made the candy available. And Walmart's actually done a good job of that. And there are Sam's Club stores, and it may now actually be true in Walmart's. In the laundry detergent, they mandated at Sam's Club, 3 or 4 years ago, that there would only be concentrated formula laundry detergent. So you couldn't buy the big jug that takes a lot more transportation miles to get from point A to point B. A lot more plastic involved in the packaging, and you're basically shipping water at that point. So they just said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to make the bad option go away and only make the good concentrated option available. So in the case of your example, I sometimes think a little bit of regulation can be a good thing because it forces manufacturers to take the bad options off the market and innovate in a way that it's easy to stay with the status quo if there's not something pushing you to try something different.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Suzanne, thanks so much for talking to me.
Thanks. Glad to do it.
Yeah,
glad to do it.
Good. All right.